They suddenly slid under the jack and suddenly decided to wheel it in. It wouldn't restart, and there was lots of lights flashing on the dash. They think it may be an electrical problem, but then they've immediately gone to the back of the car. Normally, if it is electrical, you go to the side pod and look at some electrics there.
They've taken the back out.
They've taken the back whole end back off, and now everyone is working on it. The winch is going down, and it looks like I can't believe this. They're going to winch anything out. My view at this point is blocked, as you can imagine. Oh, here comes the whole back end. This is that story we talked about at the beginning of the week. They can change the back end of this car in less than 7 minutes. This one's been sitting in the garage area. We talked about the huge garage area. They've whipped this round. We'll start a stopwatch on this right now. They're taking a whole back end off, and they've got this down. They can do it in under 7. They did it in 4.5 in practice. So here comes that winch, lifts up the whole back end. A whole new one goes back on. They're going to reattach all those hoses.
Guy, they must have known that this is a problem, because the way this thing is set up with that rear end, the way they have that winch in there, this isn't something they didn't anticipate.
Absolutely, Danny, you're right. And obviously, it was a good anticipation.
Well, this is Reynolds Yost, you see. This is where this man is so bright, so clever. He anticipates this kind of thing happening, so he's prepared for it. And whilst they can get this back end off and on in this very short time, the one thing that would concern me slightly here is that the oil inside the gearbox of that back end is stone cold. So when he shoots out of the pits, that's when you've got to be careful you don't overpressurize the gearbox and blow the hose off.
Yes, but let me tell you, if he's thought of all this and the winches and everything, they've thought about the oil situation as well. Now, maybe the driver who takes it back out will be warned you got to take the first lap to get the temperature up, but they've thought of that.
I'll tell you what, Danny, I've had to clock on this. It's been 1 minute so far. Unbelievable how rapidly they just... Remember back in the days of the DTM, they could change the front ends unbelievably rapidly. Now they've got it to do the back ends.
Well, this would take you out of the race in the old days when I remember being here for Ferrari 1971. We all did our gearboxes in. Well, we took them off and tried to repair them, but it was like 2 or 3 hour deal to do that. How many minutes? 1 minute, 2 minutes? I don't believe it.
I don't
That's
either.
impossible.
Well, Guy, that's very impressive. When I was here with Raffinelli with the BMW, we lost the gearbox, and we lost about 1 hour and 15 minutes while they changed that.
Well, that was quick.
That was pretty quick.
Yeah. But this is a magic team, though.
They've also decided, guys, at this point to make a driver change. Well, as long as the car's sitting there. So Alan McNish is now getting in. Alan McNish, quickest guy in the Audi field, although Tom Christensen set that fast lap earlier. And at this point, we've just hit the 2 minute mark on this change. They're already getting ready to put the rear end back on.
And that car is just...
And this car's coming back out, and I can tell you there's mayhem down here in Audi pit area. But amazingly, that thing is going to be back out. And as long as we have a second here, just an interesting point, we had an email question come in asking whether if one car goes out on a multi-car team, do the other guys help that team? Well, they don't necessarily help them if the car's out, but certainly if it's in the garage, they'll help them. And there was a swarm of about 30 guys working on that car right now. And we've been shoved aside. We're waiting to hear it get started back up. And then they're going to try and put some temperature back in that oil before they send him out. And, of course, Alan will have been warned of that.
Hey, Guy, one of the things that you said, that it's very chaotic down there, but I will tell you this, it also looked very well coordinated and choreographed, the way everybody seemed to have their job and nobody seemed to be getting in the other person's way.
Well, that's just like ants, isn't it? When you see those little ants all crawling around there, they never bump into each other. They get into the nest and they do their stuff. This is well-honed machinery. This is like the inside of a Swiss wristwatch working.
In the meantime, just to confuse things, it looks like the number 7 is getting ready to make their pit stop. They could be coming in. They're getting ready to reel this one out. And just out as an interesting sideline, one of the witnesses to this whole thing is Jürgen Barth. As they now wheel out that car, it's been 3 minutes, 15 seconds at this point. It's on the jack. They're wheeling it out. They've got the... Oh, they waited. They were waiting to see if the 7 was coming in. It's not coming in. They got time. Look at that. Do that quick 360. The lights are all flicking again. We should have this thing fired up any second.
It'll be interesting what he does on the pace with that, as Alan said.
Oh, the jack's not working. The front jack won't go down.
Unbelievable.
Okay, now it's gone down. Wheels have touched ground. 4 minutes. No, 3 minutes, 47 seconds. And Alan McNish is out back in front. Oh my God,
I
an
don't believe
incredible
it. That's
pit
the most
stop.
extraordinary thing I've ever seen in motor racing here at Le Mans.
Even if you add in the few minutes or the few seconds they were working on that car before we realized what was happening, that might have been another 30 seconds. Still, that's within that 4 minutes.
It's extraordinary.
And
It's
they said
extraordinary.
7 minutes.
Yeah.
They did it in under 4, even with all that stuff in there.
Sorry?
And he's back out.
That's an object lesson to any other team that ever wants to come to this race. If you can't do that, don't trouble to come here. Because they've now set the new yard mark.
I was going to say the bar has just been raised here at Le Mans in terms of work in the pit area. The Panoz is in. And by the way, when we come back from our next break, Alan McNish, we have a great piece where he took us through that entire procedure. It'll be fascinating to see that unfold. Meanwhile, the Panoz is in, but with that long stop by the number 9 Audi that has been so strong, it is now down about a lap and a half to its teammate, the number 7. Welcome back to Le Mans as Tommy Kendall's Porsche is in. Charlie Slater was driving. He is out. We promised you that Alan McNish would give us a tour of that absolutely remarkable performance, the ballet you saw the Audi team just execute to perfection, the sub-5-minute swap of a rear end.
Racing cars at Le Mans don't get much more high-tech than the Audi R8R, and I have the very man himself to show me around his example, Alan McNish.
Well, this is the car that set pole position. As you can see, it's actually being repaired, and what we're doing is the final preparations prior to the race. We're going through it. We've changed the engine, the gearbox, so we've got all that system in. But it's a V8 twin turbo. It has got a restricted air restrictor, which is down to 32.4 millimeters. And it has got a maximum boost level of 1 3/4 bar, but we're still producing about just over 600 brake horsepower, which will mean a top speed of about 210 miles per hour at Le Mans. We use Olin's dampers on the rear, but hanging on the end is a 6-speed longitudinal gearbox, which we don't shift manually with a gear lever. We've actually got paddles on a steering wheel, a la Formula 1, and that makes it significantly easier. It's a stress-membered machine, meaning that we don't have the engine sitting in a cage. The actual engine gearbox assembly bolts completely onto the back of the monocoque of the chassis, and that just means it's a little bit better from its torsional stiffness. The driver sits in a very, very nice little survival cell, and as my illustrious mechanic here shows, it has got, as well as a head restraint on this side and at the back, they have looked at it a little bit further and they've taken the head restraint round the right-hand side as well, so that you have got complete security there in the event that something does go wrong and you do crash into the barrier. This is my steering wheel. As you can see, it has got the little paddles for upshift and downshift. It's quite a thick steering wheel. The reason it's cut off at the bottom is because the cockpits now are so tight, and you have to change drivers with the steering wheel in position. It's necessary that the bottom is not there so you can bend your legs out. You'll remember, Alan, how difficult it is to get in and out with a full steering wheel, and now this makes it easier. We've got various things on there, but most of them are just the normal, the pit speed, the radio, the high beam, the drinks bottle, reverse if necessary, but hopefully not, and neutral. These, I have to say, are illuminated as well. This is special paint so that we can see it in the dark. Something not many teams think of. Yost and Audi have thought into the future. They've looked at it. It is going to be dark for about 7 hours. We need to know which buttons we have to press. We also have had to try and combat some of the regulation changes, and they've now got a mandatory 15mm gurney flap on the rear wing. And that means on the big long straights, you know what it's like, you sit there for such a long time. With that, it's a lot of drag. But we've had to then try and counteract our aerodynamics to try and make the same top line speeds. And we've been able to do that. And I think that everything is a little bit in our control at the moment, but then when the race starts, that's when it goes a little bit out of control sometimes.
What really impresses me here in your garage is the fact that whatever happens to this car during the race, you've got instantaneous spare parts. I mean, you can change the whole of the back end in, what, 4 minutes?
Well, that was just something that Reinhold Jost, when he joined with Audi, through his experience from before, he said to them, look, Le Mans is one thing. You can go fast. You need to have a car that's very fast, but you need to have a car that's very reliable. But what happens if your driver has a collision? What happens if you have a gearbox failure? And so they looked into the design, and incorporating that idea, they can actually take the whole back end of the car off from here and replace it, so the gearbox, everything off and back on in under 7 minutes. And that is, you know, means you lose a lap and a half, and maybe just a little bit more. Whereas before, that would mean you're definitely out of the race. So we can combat any unforeseen or hopefully unforeseen situation coming into the race.
I think Alan's very, very aptly covered everything that we could possibly want to know about this car. If anybody's got any more questions, they better email in with them.
That was a very thorough look at it. And by the way, that stop, that car has dropped no further down the order than 4th. Interestingly, it's the number 11 Panoz that is now back in the top 3. And we get a look now at Eric Van de Poele, who is still sitting in the number 1 Cadillac as they continue to be working at the back of the car. But I'll tell you, what the Audi team has accomplished here is that was phenomenal. And to only lose, what, I mean, 3 spots.
Well, it all went according to plan, but Danny and I were talking about this earlier, and they obviously have considered there could be a possibility with the back end, probably the gearbox. Therefore, they wanted to work out a way to be able to change it nice and quickly. So just what Alan McNish talked us through and what we've seen is precisely what happened. And there's no way that crew could have done what they did do were they not well-oiled, well-honed and well-practiced. And that, again, I said at the top of the show, this team has come here as well-prepared as any team I've ever seen. And if anybody wants any proof of that, they just saw it.
Let's also remember, this just goes to show there's a whole lot of racing left here at Le Mans. There's a lot of stuff that can happen to the best, to anybody down that field. We have a whole lot of racing left in front of us, and a lot of things are going to happen between now and tomorrow afternoon.
Well, they may have been able to replace the armor in a tremendous hurry, but we may have just seen the first crack in the armor that could open this up just a little bit. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Le Mans. Earlier, we looked at the Porsche storylines, and we'd like to keep track of those as the evening and the morning unfolds, and let's do that right now. Alan, the first of them was the awesome Audis, and we've just seen incredible evidence that that is very descriptive.
Well, that's absolutely right. You couldn't ask for a better term. The AA, awesome Audis. If anyone's in any doubt, they'll be seeing this a little later on when we repeat it, but it was quite spectacular.
The next one was Mario's dream, and will that become a reality? His car is now in the top 3.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. When you look at the times that his co-drivers are doing, I mean, yeah, they're a little bit quicker than Mario was, but as he says, he's taken his time to settle in, and he's not doing anything silly. He hasn't charged off like a lunatic trying to prove he's still the quickest man in the world. He's just bedding himself in really nicely. This is a young race. His car is there. It's in the 3rd place. This could become Mario's dream. Hey, we got our fingers crossed.
Cadillac's return. Not long ago, we took a good in-depth look at the program. Where does it sit?
Well, I think Cadillac have obviously had a bit of a tough lesson this early on in Le Mans, but they're good people. They're all well trained. They've got all the bits and pieces they need. They will get those cars back out here. This is the first time they've ever appeared here. It's a very, very good effort to be able to come here and say you finished it. And if they finish it, they'll finish it well. They're doing good.
And they've got one car that's in 6th place right now, so let's not, it may not be the one that's run by the Cadillac official, but it's still a Cadillac, and it's still up there in 6th spot.
They've been smart choosing a good team to run it too, because one of the great secrets to Le Mans is to use a good team to run your cars.
Very well. The last one was American Muscle, primarily the GTS battle, Viper and Vet, and that is on.
That is definitely on. I mean, we've got the Vipers in the lead at the moment, but there's only about a lap in it. And again, the same thing applies to the Corvette. They are both hanging in there. And it's an excellent performance for a car that's never been to Le Mans before. I mean, I don't know how much they expect to get, but I think they're doing very well. There's a lap in it. Anything can happen. They're there.
And there are the Porsche storylines. Now, we've got some great video at night of the number 9 Audi. It is now in chase mode, and one of the drivers of that car is with Guy Hobbs.
Well, the driver, when the problem occurred, Lauren Ayala brought it in for a regular pit stop, and Lauren, right at the end of the pit stop, it seems you guys decided to change that whole back end in the most unbelievable orchestration. They did it in what I got as under 4 minutes. First of all, what was the change for? Was it clutch? Was it oil? Was it a gearbox? Or was it just a security measure?
No, we had a shifting problem, so we decided to change the complete rear of the car. It takes, as you say, about 4 minutes or less. So it was a good decision to change everything.
Now, because you guys did it all so well, it's obviously an inherent problem in the Audi. Are you expecting you may have this problem come up again before the end of the 24-hour?
No, we have not, for sure. It's when we were testing around Europe, we didn't have any problem with that. So. But anyway, we were prepared to have this sort of change, and they've done very well. The mechanics were quite good.
when the car was in, you decided to get out and put Alan McNish in. That was just the decision just because the car was sitting there?
Yeah, and also because we could save time by changing the driver during the change of the back of the car.
Now, you're British touring car champion. In the DTM a few years ago, they could change the front end in unbelievable time. Are you impressed or amazed at how quickly your whole team went about this? No problems, no panic, and it was all done so cleanly?
Yeah, but I mean, they trained a lot for that, and they were very well prepared, and they are quite good mechanics, so they are doing a very good job here, and I hope we will come back on the pace and try to go for the first place.
All right, congratulations to you. Great job here. Laurent Aiello, who dropped back to fourth, is now 1.8 seconds behind the third place car.
Laurent's a very good man there. I love his English, though. The mechanics, they are quite good. If that's quite good, what are the good ones?
Absolutely. Andrew is with this third place Viper in GTS.
Routine, just a routine pit stop here. The door shuts. The thunderous V10 powers the car away off the pit lane, and I think it was Anthony Beltoise in the car, because he's the son of Jean-Pierre Beltoise. Those of you with a good memory will know he won the Monaco Grand Prix in a BRM. But that's the dad, the son's at the wheel.
That was a very great race, that Monaco one. I think he surprised himself and everybody else by winning it. It teamed down for that particular one. 1970, I think, if I'm not much mistaken.
Now here's a look at another of the Vipers. This one, though, run by Paul Belmondo Racing. The driver, Jean-Claude Leguez, Guy Martinal, and Boris de Richburg. And that car is just outside of this battle between the three Oreca Vipers and the two Corvettes. But it, too, is in a position to pick up some spoils should something develop here at Le Mans. And a little bit of concern. They're taking a look at probably the condition of the brakes on the car. And apparently they like what they see. We will be right back.
At the start of the 2000 Rolex 24 at Daytona, James Weaver led in one of Rob Dyson's trusty Riley and Scott Fords. Just a few laps in, Alex Caffey spun the Ferrari, and James Weaver continued to lead. Caffey soon spun again. He would pit and give Alan McNish a shot, but his luck would be no better. Engine failure would ultimately cause the car's demise. Meanwhile, Freddie Leinart's Lista Ferrari had taken the lead, but he too would spin. In the GTO class, the Oreca Vipers cruised up front while Ron Fellows' C5R Corvette coasted to its pit out of fuel. Fuel rig problems were leaving the tanks a few gallons light on each stop, a problem that would come back to haunt them. An engine fire ended the day for the Lista Ferrari. Meantime, on the track, Max Pappas led in the Dyson entry as Ron Fellows pushed the Corvette hard to make up ground. Max Pappas was slowed by a dropped cylinder. By dawn, the problem had worsened, and it was only a matter of time before Dominic Dupuis flew by Elliott Forbes Robinson for the overall lead. Car owner Rob Dyson could only stand by and watch helplessly. A late yellow flag set up a dramatic shootout as Ron Fellows, now in second, pursued the leaders as they made their final stop. Carl Wendlinger, however, held off Fellows for a rare overall GTO win in the closest finish in Rolex 24-hour history.
If you're watching what's unfolding here at Le Mans, there should be no doubt in your mind what the home of endurance racing is. But if there is any doubt, just listen to this. In 2001, Speed Vision will bring you the triple crown of endurance racing, the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, the 12 Hours of Sebring, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans in their entirety. That's right. No more trying to get internet updates in the middle of the night or waiting for TV coverage to resume. Next year, you can follow each and every hour of each of the big three endurance races, like the Daytona Rolex 24, live, and it's only on Speed Vision. So if you're into endurance sports car racing, you're into Speed Vision. It's that simple. And if you're into racing, you're into what's going on the track here. Alan McNish, who had dropped to fourth, has already caught and passed the number 11 Panoz. They are now in third. third, and he has just set the fastest lap that car has turned all race. McNish is now going full chat.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You know, it just shows how much confidence McNish has in his crew, because they took the whole of his back end off, put a new one on. That's major surgery in anybody's catalogue. And what's he done? He's jumped in that car and he set the fastest lap he's done. And it's at night too. Well, we know the cars go a little quicker, but that is confidence in your team. And Le Mans is all about confidence.
We also just saw a pit stop by the number 3 DAMS Cadillac LMP. And Danny, we were just chatting about that as we have the number 8 Audi, which currently sits in second, is in as well.
And that's an interesting shot because he's on the inside where the fueler is. I'm not sure how our cameraman got over there, whether that's a shot from above. But yes, the DAMS Cadillac is doing a great job. Everybody's running there. I guess the report that I'd like to know from our pit guys, if they can find out, is what's happened to the Raffinelli Lola Judd, because he said 25 minutes, and I think it's probably been about 25 minutes. And I'm sure Gabriele was confident in that, but I'm just wondering if they have more problems than he originally thought.
Well, I think that could be the case, because when you look at something like that, it doesn't look too bad, but then you take it all to pieces and suddenly something springs out of place because it's being held by a bent wishbone or whatever he's got up the front there. And of course, carbon fiber, unlike those old aluminium monocoques we used to have, you can't set to with a hammer and start spanking out carbon fiber, because it'll shatter and break, or you can't bend it. So if they've distorted the front of the tub too much, they can't hang the fresh suspension.
Right, and one thing that these teams are, and the people that come here, especially Raffinelli, and having driven for him or worked with those mechanics before, I can tell you they will not put the car back unless it's safe. They will not put it out onto the track.
No, well, that's the professional way to go. You know, you don't want to have people out there getting hurt.
We also saw a very good job of the repair in the number 1 Cadillac, and Guy Hobbs is standing by with a gentleman who's part of the team that built and designed the car.
Absolutely. Mark Riley is here with me, and we saw the Eric van der Poel bring the car in, pardon me, Bill Riley bring the car in. Was it broken upright?
No, it wasn't a broken upright. It was a wheel drive pin issue. We had it done at Daytona. It happened. We thought we had a fix for it, but obviously we didn't, so we'll have to work harder when we get home.
Now, it didn't take the guys that long actually to get it back out and on the way, and in the meantime, while you had your problems, the lead Audi had their problems.
Yeah, I was totally unaware of what was going on with them, so we were just heads down trying to get the Cadillac LMP out there.
Now, having had the problem with the 1 car with Eric van der Poel, do you foresee maybe having the problem with the number 2 car?
It's possible, so we're going to start doing some measures to make sure it doesn't happen.
All right, thank you and good luck. We'll keep a close eye on you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And in the meantime, we'll also check in on the Raffinelli team for you to see how their 20-minute pit stop that was scheduled is doing.
Well, Guy, it looks to be doing pretty well, as that car is now back and parked in pit lane. And one would suspect it's going to be making its way out. And the update continues. Alan McNish has now just turned the fastest lap of the race at a 3-minute 37.995 as he is chasing his teammates. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are coming up on 7.5 hours complete here at the year 2000, I should say, 24 hours of Le Mans. We continue to watch activity down in the pit lane. Of course, the crews, just because the cars are not in, doesn't mean the work's not done. They're either looking at things or trying to prepare for another stop, which seem to come with great regularity here. So the pit lane remains a very busy place.
Very busy, and in fact, none of these guys have had any rest at all, because with these cars running these limited fuel tanks, of course, they have to come in a lot more often than they used to. Back in the old days when, like David Hobbs and I used to do this thing, we could stay out there for 2 hours at a stint, come in and have a fuel and go out for another 2 hours. Well, now they're in every, what, sort of 50 minutes to an hour. So, I mean, these guys are busy, busy, busy.
Well, and they're running, of course, 90-liter tanks in the LMP 900, or the overall which is class, which is maybe 22 gallons. So obviously they're going through some good fuel. Now, one of the things about Le Mans, since it's been running since 1923, this is the 68th running, there's so much history, so much change. A little bit earlier, Alan and I were able to go out on track and take a look at some of the changes.
This, believe it or not, is the infamous La Maison Blanche, the White House, scene of some of the very worst accidents in the history of the old Le Mans 24-hour race, including a wipeout of the Bentley Works team. If you could take this bend flat, you were definitely living with the gods. It certainly separated the men from the boys. For many people, the first time they ever got to hear about Le Mans is when they saw the late, great Steve McQueen's movie, Le Mans. You may remember at the beginning of that show, he stops his Porsche 911 road car by the side of the track to examine a great big old dent in the guardrail that we're led to suppose was caused by a previous accident. Well, that happened right here at Maison Blanche. It's in fact probably one of the most difficult bends that anybody ever had to encounter, and certainly Steve McQueen did not get it right. The last time they used this track in 1971, Joe Siffert in practice wound himself up to try to take this Maison Blanche turn flat. Well, at 220 miles an hour, he came flying through here to discover, as he got through the bend, a Porsche 911 had spun and was sitting right in the middle of the track. Well, how he avoided that car, we'll never know. He made his way back to the pits, and his mechanics had to prise him out of the car. And when the driver of the Porsche 911 got back to the pits, his mechanic had to prise Seppi Siffert's fingers from around his throat, where he was about to extract divine retribution for nearly being killed. Well, fortunately, that sort of thing doesn't happen at Le Mans anymore.
Alan, there's another part of the circuit that has been in existence since the beginning of the race in 1923 that remains part of the circuit. It is considered very challenging and equally as feared. And it's the run from the Mulsanne hairpin down to the famed Indianapolis corner. And it's about halfway down that run where things get very interesting. You see the hump that the drivers come over. Now, last year, Peter Dumbrek in the Mercedes flipped violently a number of times and ended up about 100 feet beyond the guardrail and fencing off into the woods. He was, of course, okay, and that was a unique one-off instance with the Mercedes problems last year. However, there's a unique optical illusion the drivers have to deal with. As you approach that hump, remember the driver's eyes are maybe 3.5 feet off the ground. All you see is the crown of the road and then the guardrail and fencing for the turn leading into Indianapolis. As a result, that optical illusion, some of the drivers really struggling, lifting too early, realizing what they've done. In fact, Ron Fellows, his first time here, says this is the part of the track he's having the most problems with. Once you've solved that bit of optical illusion and are able to keep it absolutely flat and continue your run over the hump toward Indianapolis at absolute full chat, you come upon what is now considered, with the removal of Maison Blanche and the chicanes on the Mulsanne slowing them down through the kink, generally the most feared corner on the track. It doesn't even have a name, but it has tremendous respect from the drivers. So this right-hander, you've got to get through it incredibly fast, but you can see there's very little room from the exit, hard on the brakes, make your turn into Indianapolis, a crucial corner on the track. Now, thinking back to what Alan was talking about in the great movie Le Mans back in the 70s, remember the trees and the guardrail right about here. Imagine those speeds, 230 miles an hour through this tunnel and braking through the turn and getting into Indianapolis. An absolutely daunting piece of track. And even today, as I said, tremendous respect from all who come through it. Well, what an unbelievable piece of track. And Danny, although you've certainly raced the segment I was talking about while you were watching, I seem to sense some relief that you were about 15, 20 years after they got rid of Maison Blanche.
Well, definitely after Maison Blanche, but I will tell you, I had the pleasure of driving here before they put the chicanes down the Mulsanne Straight, and I've got to tell you, I really enjoyed it. It was a great experience, but that kink at the end, it put your heart in your mouth.
Let's go down to Guy Hobbs real quick, who's got the caddy pit stop.
Just in time to see Andy Wallace going out, and he gets a hand signal from one of the pit lane officials because he didn't turn the lights on and he didn't put his visor down. They changed all four tyres. Butch Lyson are in the vehicle now. Andy Wallace got out, and an interesting thing, they took this time here to check the rear brakes before putting on the rear wheels, and actually very happy with those, so they just gave him a little coat and sent them back out.
Well, once that car has been going here, it has been running very, very well indeed. And Butch Leitzinger, obviously one of the better pilots going and having a very solid run here at Le Mans. Now, we have just been joined in the booth by a very special guest, and when we come back after a break, we're going to have a little bit of a visit with Chris Neifel, who just got out of one of the Corvettes. So stay with us. When we come back, we'll visit with Chris. The Vipers have just been in, and some more routine stops have gone their way, and somebody who's watching all the action here with great interest is, as I said, joined us up in the booth, Chris Neifel, who's one of the three drivers in the number 63 Corvette. And Chris, you're looking a lot more fresh after just getting out of the car in the dark here than you did after you got out a little bit earlier in the afternoon.
You didn't see me 20 minutes ago when I got out. I was pretty toasted, but you know, we've got some guys that are working with us to help keep us properly hydrated and, you know, work on our nutrition plan. And, you know, we have to keep the drivers just as strong as the cars throughout this this grueling test.
Well, that brings up a good question. Okay, you just got out of the car 20 minutes ago. It's now 11:30 at night. Temperature's gone down. How much difference between when you were in before in the sunshine and now?
It's an unbelievable difference. I mean, to do double stints now isn't really all that difficult for us. During the heat of the day, forget about it. There's just no way.
What's the hottest that you had actually driven or tested the car prior to today?
In terms of ambient temperature, probably last year at Laguna Seca, we were, I think, up in the low 90s, and we were seeing cockpit temperatures there close to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and we were seeing in the low 160s again today.
Have they ever taken the temperature inside your suit? Because, of course, what do you got? 3 to 6 layers on. Of actually, with the underwear, a couple layers. The suit's what, 3 layers? So you got, is that correct? 5 layers?
No, I just wear just a 3-layer suit. When it's hot like this, no t-shirt or anything.
But you're dehydrating like crazy anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean it's unreal what you sweat, but you just get replenished. The first stint I lost 5 pounds, right about there, and I probably lost a little bit more because I was in the car, you know, quite a bit longer this time.
And now, you're just drinking water, aren't you, inside the car?
Inside the car, it's water, yeah, but that's my water bottle wasn't properly connected when I came in on my double stint, and so I had no water available to me, and I have to admit I was hurting the last few laps on my double stint.
Now, when you're doing the water bottle, for everybody at home, they don't understand. Is it just got a drip feed and you bite on it inside your helmet? Is that the system you're using? A little bit like one of those gator backs that the mountain bikers use?
Yeah, very similar. It's just a bottle that sits in a little holder that's sort of inside the frame in the door, and it's just a plastic tube that's, you know, hanging down on your shoulder harness. And when you want it, you just grab it, stick it up in your mouth, and, you know, suck on it.
How often do you take when you're doing that? How often would you do it in a hot situation like this?
On my second stint, as an example, I held out till 5 laps to go because I wanted something to look forward to. And when I started sucking air, it wasn't a good feeling.
You know, when I did it with the car too, I've done it where I actually put it in my mouth and I left it there and I bit on it about every 20-30 seconds just for a drop. Because this trainer that I had, Jim Landis, he told me that actually keeps you more hydrated than taking the big gulps, because it's just a little bit, but it's always replenishing. I'm not suggesting it, but you might give it a go if it gets to work and you're not sucking air. You'll at least know early on whether you're going to long stint without it or not.
No, I'm willing to try anything.
Got a quick question for you. In terms of your chase of the Vipers, right now your car has the fastest lap of the 5 of you, the 3 factory Oreca Vipers in your team, but everybody's awfully close. Do you guys feel like you've got something left, and do you feel that the Vipers are laying off enough? I mean, where are you putting yourself right now in terms of down the road?
I can't imagine that the Vipers are laying off. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna run hard straight through this race. You know, we're absolutely not going to back off. You know, we're just going to continue to push. You know, no big mistakes, and you know, I think the battle is still going to be fought. You know, the 63 car, we're just a little out of sync with the Vipers, and this is a sort of territory that we've been in before, and we just can't quite. You know, we're just that one sort of half step off.
Now, but you think how many times they've been here, how much experience they've got at this track, and the only place in the world you can really test for Le Mans is right bang here. You guys, you have a product that's really pretty fresh out the box, and you're in there. You're not just hanging in there, you're right in there. So they've only got to have the slightest hiccup with the red cars, and you're going to be there.
Yeah, well, that's our plan. You know, we're trying to run a hard enough pace that we push them, and maybe they make some mistakes along the way.
Got a couple minutes to stick around for a few more? Sure. All right, Chris Neifel will stay with us, and we'll get some more questions from inside the cockpit, as it were. And right now, as I said, we are coming up now on 10 hours. Check that, 8 hours complete here at the 68th running of Le Mans. We'll be right back.